Good afternoon. This is Cal State Long Beach reporting live from the Dartmouth Round Robin with important news from the people living in extinction now. Can I get a witness?
This is an ongoing emergency. Don't panic. You're already living in it. Bombs have been dropping everywhere we go from Long Beach to Dartmouth. We're living in the apocalypse now, but it seems like Harvey and Christopher Callahan have been accustomed to the wars that are happening now. I've heard the pieces before the blast. We are faced off the bomb, don't discriminate, nuclear winter, mass starvation, people go hungry to climate change. You want to know we think about the topic. We do not think about U.S. China class, Taiwan, SCSB is not talking about Russia for U.S. for direct estate, Ukraine, not about that AQ, no Caucasian, I am talking to Indian nuclear plane, no dirty bomb. Has not been a thing since 20th anniversary of 9/11 attack. We think about the nuclear bomb, but very slavery for dropping in 50-26 Africans from their homeland and families and why prepping while they went to the world for 300 years that took over 12 million souls. We think about the bomb and the Emancipation Proclamation of fall prominent political stuff for looking to gain popularity. Just become president, we think about from slavery to Jim Crow and slavery to the 13 state patrols and the police led teaching redlining segregation. The bomb just kept on coming. CIA sponsored pigeonhole black community and the cycle of addiction, algorithm policing and disinvesting in black and brown neighborhoods, creating the apocalypse act fear exists. In city of Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, more and negative. Say actually good, all you met state sponsored neglect like medical anti-blackness, the housing crisis, job discrimination, massive spread of HIV, and nuclear community. We think about the turns good, quote unquote. Oh, you met the bombing of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Philly, and against Philly neighborhoods, against Blue 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, the crackdown on black liberation. As far as time can tell, all because black people want a future for themselves, no substantivity change. How about 23 84% of the 80% for the 17% authorities, and oh, I get it, the bomb doesn't discriminate. That's why Mexico bomb does politicians will bomb Mexico. Indigenous people are systematically deprived of basic infrastructure like water, electricity, anti-Asian, hate crimes at an all-time high. The U.S. is helping Israel drop weapons of mass destruction on Palestine. We are not approaching any war. We're already living it. You scared of nuclear winter in the current down in apocalyptic conditions? We've been there, done that. From energy to insurance to disarm the conventional ship. The topic when we go to series debate that end with universalized discord nuclear war is an urgent impact to avoid whitewashing the apocalyptic condition of white supremacy that determined death before and after the bomb is backing off. 19 nuclear chicken anxiety claiming only matter of time that no new nation rather than the United States to the universalized discord the rating with phase one nuclear war one race $1 million private African American you have to be like to conform. I think the one that you on the American level the bomb the white flow nuclear we not the universal one like American let's go and see the elder and the like private country long as supposed to basically the internet rate 39 mobile iPhone 4 bomb after the Western family construction to position the purpose of somebody who can powerfully against the effective will be also moves engine form at the second post socket in the nuclear war the apocalyptic condition safety offered time before disrupting it and for debate fear the different approach to the topic because style debate has associated blackness to the environment to confront its own racist fear when the loss of fairness because Hurley police like dog became a threat to defeat black nuclear weapons target and represent nuclear talk about non-Navy Foundation American Pride the white bar co-signed the black city yesterday and black people are there for something secure ties against to preserve a white way of life legitimately people like Letitia King the mind army trade from iron and many that the black and brown people across the globe were due to the environment of civil defense pedagogy the future of America comes at the deterrence of black views that's Hurley to the United Nations civil defense the racist infringement term mysterious freaking group out the number and policy got fight black men who move on to the bottom of the body of the neighborhood line and face of the American black and future the possibility began this is and the armies and soldiers are cities and the cities hit not over so many to open to cities as well as without massive evidence of the really in like you just got the high investment in nuclear complex and negative infrastructure like high employment and both housing and bomb drop on the communities every day to protect the white self and the right American lifestyle safe not only the nuclear but less than 80 city but the companies and now they black city to the provide to solution to the racial crisis and from the destruction of black neighborhoods to the supposed threat of nuclear war from another imperial power defending a nuclear conflict in the search for the great nuclear posture created for the benefit of society violent infrastructure for white supremacy future we must disarm the civil defense pedagogy that causes whiteness to entangle itself with these nuclear weapons that's been used 23 policing what our history and suffering never nuclear fancy entangled with the racial like primal racial everything goes by racial like not going to jeopardize the government racial hierarchy debate on nuclear policy taking place in the current 2 million by the open the regulation quite now what we affect subsidy to range to the sunny and another problem dress on taking like signing laws and disarm nuclear and addressing the nuclear race hierarchy nuclear race gender fantasy that now restore attacking liberal democracy before a world by nuclear conflict comes to the body atomic genocide and nuclear scenario playing the form of self-defense pedagogy that's informed by interest convergence. When you hear the words inevitably that say nuclear war affects black people too, it's a white supremacist guide that only saves black life from meant that white life isn't continue living that precedent. 2008 when we were from the rapid nature of the nuclear attack and radio prepare for mercy when we return to the war and the home sector and try to learn for children and doing white American woman where's the African American women all these on the ground might be subverting the concept of the anti-American military life all the anti-American into the lane all that we write those to the African American material and the white discord and the hierarchy relationship and the freedom united, keeping the spell to act as civil defense war. Teaching women to continue with the picture on the back, particularly the civil Russian that cover routine of war. Doing for the civil defense, the company new set of white, around the enemy, I can hear the economic race like other. But black future should not have to come out of cause my experience with nuclear weapons dropped on my community and family. May not be pretty, but my future looks like a world in which black and brown people and other marginalized people do not have to worry about nuclear bombs dropping them. A future with civil defense logic, relatively making future reachable for everybody. Only if you have that method to get there. Thus, we some people advocate for disarmament of nuclear forces, civil defense to the top ever futures, and that means that the ways you born enemies by remembering the future through the past when the reason the derogation for life is backing off. 19 nuclear cruisers before the nuclear war, like the authorities in the world after refusing affirmation back to the war for the nuclear and like the whole this also new the enemy to act like the one never happened to say the enemy that we told you back when if you didn't about the studying a bit in the past we could both also probably running the revenue to the word future for and in order to combat that future system of line ourselves the black brown people on the ground now that are fighting against the apocalypse from groups and be more such as black people will to see resistance in LB who must embody and align ourselves with the pedagogy of black liberation movements in order to create black futures beyond the end of the war. Thus our performance as nuclear dads in the body form a person that carves out the picture of black resistance at the end term to what dad for the new revolution making the land of great dads and the whole great about the local about the all the yaz all the here and how they train food responsibility the ship and the famous and the world of the war how they have to black and the region down the borders the nuclear what they result in nuclear how they resist and resist because this is no better that's why we look about the topic of the like all the but I said that these like companies like some more first talk about the use great music and this form of post-memory that refutes the circulation of white press in favor of circulating back with this movement which historically mobilizes communities that's just so 23. I didn't deal with that. Like circulating by black only white nation, and obviously black people in the audience. It was investigating girls who realized like white terrorists, you all come black people were very black person, one type person, and I feel the black person available for response to my experience of violence, plus running through African Germany, was the violence and children critiquing about the violence, making visible and insecure by white media, and critical, that may burn that will and I remember the opposite space organized for future while waiting, agree with that for the past and the future, and put them in opportunity out of the past, and also do have space for black people organized learn for the internet, go out and also black people and send to the form of past, but black people about the violence, come from John Finn, yes, for bear with the turn, power and against nuclear subjectivity for the debate we challenge directly came to a ratification point that's in the critical revolutionary class that may be necessary for epistemological growth that's mentally valid, taking understanding of the critical source of the opportunity for the perspective by the rest of the advocate for the source of the basically about for our history on the rainbow like you was coming out of the train like no time we are from that reduces some of the limitations of the written for topic to have the child was property like you lose with house in the Korea and they go down to the company company needs our argument the implication and the arguments and the managing were very dominant more something either dollar argument for the and traditional nuclear debate maintain headed on trade and nuclear that retreads status quo adversity, truly to the headline to nuclear survey not going to be the right to nuclear civil war nuclear second tend to be absent and Callahan just so confused to reevaluate your paradigm or what you think specific testing is. Just because we don't go use the word miscount, vertical proliferation, user losing pressure in the box, etc. It does not mean that we are a shallow lack of nuance. What it sounds like a generic jargon to you, but it might be a something racist fear to engage in various competing features of black and brown theorizing. Even if debates like future versus pessimism contain the season worth of backing questions like coalition, humanism, resistance tactics, shape how we engage with the historical archive and how we should view black, etc. all require extremely detailed testing that's valuable for us to engage in, even if you're reluctant to philosophical nihilism. When Harvard rattles off the limited ground decided in the 2 and C, you should read it as through a lens of white comfort and instead vote out to carve out space for black, radical and brown organizing. When we still promote resolution of debates, the question of U.S. nuclear policy inform black and brown life in the everyday, we have taken the stance of topic ever future while negating the argument like black bombs, go for the sake of deterrence, etc. Second, reason building on class or testing arguments, you as a white person to debate for Northwestern should understand that your metric for what might be good classical testing is through a very particular frame that is biased towards racial methods of debate that are not the norm for me and Diego, who are UDL alumni, small schools, and a part of the human community. We elicit sufficient ground and predictable how to load to need a good ass debate, but good should be good enough. Offense versus defense paradigm of the false distinction because we never give weight to arguments we were more sensitive based on our past engagement with them.
Cross. What's our all-time whatever? Yeah, no worries.
I'm good.
Okay, you said you've given us sufficient predictable ground. What is that ground?
Yeah, sure. So we've listed things like KVK debates. We think those have good ground.
Which Ks?
We said things like, we think some examples, the Cap K, we think psychoanalysis is one. We think pessimism, obviously y'all aren't black, so I don't think y'all would be
Sure,
for
sure,
pessimism.
yeah.
I would hope not.
Yeah.
But I think like those are sufficient KVK ground that provide in-depth theorizing.
Yeah,
for
makes
debate,
sense.
which is good clash.
You say
We think that Callahan's paradigm is orientated towards like what good clash is, because I want to talk about like people being blown up and stuff.
Yeah,
we think
no,
that's
that makes
bad, and we
sense.
think that we
That
should
makes sense.
reorientate what we clash over to be about KBK debates are particular in the way, this is important, about the ways in which people like me and Diego are often excluded from the space by big schools. We think our model debate is one that not only lets people like Harvard in, but also people like us who are proportionally excluded from your model
Yeah.
debate.
Okay. We will
And the
end
way
all
that
this time.
Callahan
1408
drives
or
the
1508. Yeah.
They're using the restroom.
I sent it. 6 off, anyways.
I'm opening it. He says 6.
Yeah, 6
Christ.
minutes.
I need to get one.
That's terrible. Alright, we're good.
The next should not have to return on topical apps. United States with the federal government, not private entities. It could attend. We control dictionary definition. Can don't economy. You term U.S. nation. The federal government. The dictionary considered with this given term only. The term U.S. does not include private entities. Restrict confined to the limits of action. Random house confined to the limits of action. Choice. It is possessive meaning belongs to. Dictionary.com. It is possessive meaning belonging to. Nuclear forces refers to the delivery mechanism of nuclear warheads and the warheads themselves. Arson 12. Nuclear forces encompass means the delivering warheads and the forces themselves. The combination of that practicability and capability. Disarming requires the entire arsenal of warheads and delivery vehicles to be dismantled. Equivalent 22. What is nuclear disarmament? Cases would be instance nuclear reunification. Renunciation. Question is what would it take for nuclear powers to disarm? Nuclear disarmament involves a complete relinquishment of arsenal physical dismissal of all warheads and means delivery action. Nuclear state would take to win a recognition of nuclear state under the NPT. Our interpretation preserving the semblance of a predictable, limited, and contestable topic, which produces the best fates for 2 reasons. 1, procedural fairness is intrinsic and irrefutable good, as per my collective buy-in. Both sides expect not only consistency in speech time and speech order, but most importantly, equitable and unbiased judging of held by principles that we have collectively agreed are necessarily because they are fair, like presuming that dropped arguments are true and that scriptural is flowing is good. 2, clash, back and forth, refutation, arguments built into controversial resolution sharps crucial skills over time, engagement on topic that both sides come well prepared for. Trained debaters think critically and deeply about their arguments and force issues to challenge their preconceived beliefs with evidence-based contestation. Clashes and content agnostic impact and acts iteratively so the material of skill based on specific topics has 0 relevance to whether the clash is good. Next up. Nuclear explosives are not weapons because they have no purpose in achieving goals of war. So accepting this language crushes the opposition by conceding the term of debate to nuclear is Holland 3. When is a weapon not a weapon? The hero two-dimensional instrumentality is agency on the agency side. The agent is willing to actualize a gain. A weapon is not inherent in the thing itself. Rather, it is used to weapons that meet the criteria of the last history. Does not substitute credibility. None of the conflicts and purposes of the war have been served by dropping nuclear things. Possessing has not been provided. Power nuclear things for food to be impotent non-weapons. One can speak about the consequences of that as war to slaughter. Yet abolitionists unwillingly breaks off opponents' argument by accepting there are substantive things called weapons. The terms are valid meanings to compete. Abolitionists need to stress why explosives cannot be considered a weapon. Vote negatives reject frames of nuclear weapons. We can defend the rest of the AFSO strategy and negate only certain parts. Only conditional tests and limited agreement. Incentivize narrow testing specific claims requiring us to disprove the entire app. Force extreme impact terms that lack nuance and political utility to remain key terms of nuclear politics must be prior to determining the desirability of the advocacy because framing is inseparable from content. Indecisive to determine outcomes. Highlight 3. Terminology affects debate. Whoever controls framing has the greatest chance to refer to nuclear weapons as opposing perspective. However, in another critical language has to ground to speak about nuclear weapons found to opponents prevalent assumptions. Nuclear will possess the initiative to debate how to describe accurately the situation. Current opponents prevail without opposition. I'll agree that the situation one of the power nuclear options for radio data is outcome debate. Excludes abolition. The manner text is witness integral to its content content. There is no neutral way representing detached linguistic practices. Language emergence and several union of substance informed coercive direct nuclear debate that needs to be changed away from attachment to power and focus on the consequences of things. Attack should their key terms of weapons. Why bother trying someone can attack the roots of demanding nuclear weapons on it? Should they attack the key term itself? Why weapon is used in all most successful moves resort to alternative avoid competition for using opponent terminology. The two sides use the same terms of weapons to express average perspectives is quite remarkable. They were charged with the nation of enormous power through terror. Next up. We endorse the entirety of the When I Say Stands the use of nuclear weapons as a metaphor. Nuclear weapons paper over the material violence faced by victims of the atomic and attempts to assuage Americans to form from their worlds.
Skip that off. Strike it.
Next off. Capitalist inequality relies upon endless extraction. The critique is subservient to this logic, voting F as a catharsis while serving as the chief machination of acceleration within the university by 23. Critique functions as a release of catharsis on feel good while the collapse looms and edifice that we try to sustain unsustainable affairs. Capitalism relies on critique subsumes and continues to on limits. Corporations use sustainability continue with generating surplus value. Capitalism reaches a limit and redefines that. Critique impels the idea for capitalism cannibalizes it continue to grow. Academic capitalism continues within the heartbeat of radicalized university. Our research and healthcare ironically does precisely what said it would. Capitalism will always produce ecological collapse of the extraction surplus value. We are publishing republican states having a metric and career success. We are the very mechanism for this capitalist system. Conversion is fair, but the impossibility of overthrowing none of this. Obviously, economic desire, liberation, new flows, new markets created every day, new dialogue, activism going to reshape capitalism, no changing what we teach, alter material reality. Students work on organizations subservient to capitalism, responding to the insular demands of the one to seize micro-political projects, siphons off radical political energies. Phillips 99. My concern centers around the role of the critic, positioning communities, the object of investigation. The critic is an active agent, change of discourse becomes instrumental. The suggestion that outlawed communities need academic critique contradicts the order to assumptive nature when failed to offer an adequate argument for taking speaking out of the streets and studying in the classroom treats it less as protest, more as an object for analysis within the academy. Without addressing what the critic should be examining in the first place, where readably members are prepared to be brought into their means of surveillance, perhaps representation will bestow legitimacy nonetheless. The effort is destructive to siphon energy into academic rehash, we destroy ethics, recognition, take the place of material opportunities, but will legitimacy creating material states and conditions. The critic is focusing on hidden text and rendering comprehensible, turning covert discourse to abduction and analysis, risking subjecting them to the gaze of the dominant and power relations of the academy. Vote neg to embrace post-critical reading of capitalist ballot accumulation, fallacy 15. The post-critical either prescribed more to dictate attitudes critics adopt to steer us away from arguments how we know it, how to connect our sleeves. That post-critical reading will decline to subject to text to interrogation, attaching and assembling, creating something new, which the reader is decisive. Hermes reminds us of our vulnerability, qualities, agility, mischievousness, ingenuity, probability of thought, and those ones that we need are enemies, not interpretation, but proliferation of a critical methodology as credited alternative life. The need is the substance of life. The world is not rife with ambiguity. Interpretation constitutes attachment. We encounter ways of perception. Reading involves taking on new and perceptual possibilities. That is social. Does not mean it can be used for predicted by consulting the oracle of the critical theory text, which reading embodies an interplay that refuses false choice of aesthetics or politics. We can agree with the rest of the abstract strategy, but negate only certain frames. In this case, we use the ballot. Tune our consolidation is best. Nuance. Testing optimizes practice. Williams 15. Many have a norm or being an ally means that you never critique material from your side, especially speaking from a position of oppression, but an effective movement can prevent tactical criticism of those who you largely agree. Never criticizing undermines the left. Refuse to hate this is a real, but you're not helpful in making that accusation. Now alienates allies, contributes to backlash and social justice movements, accurate contingent critique. Yet we have gotten to a point at which any critique of tactics can be deemed oppression. Activists made potent and transformative cannot take comfort in their cocoon. Next up. The United States should adopt a no first use policy. Threats of first strike cause nuclear war only, and if you can dampen miscalculation, guarantee stability. Statute 22. Direct engagement, eliminate other issue containing utility nuclear weapons over weaker powers used to atmosphere violence, use of chemical force, and never used to find use for nukes. So retaliation, make a blunt instrument, opportunities never used to determine. You never explode it to the non-use to reinforce deterrence. Hardly any scenarios where it can be used. Embracing it if you does not put the states at disadvantage. It allows country to retain security limitations from arsenals for capabilities for as adversaries from use or lose a trigger preemption. And if you offers civilian inadvertent use to use the miscalculated accident, should not be able to cannot dismiss fog of war. Non-topical affirmative should forfeit perms against topical advocacies. One clash guaranteeing the negative stable option to key to ground and encourages direct impact comparison and refutation of the 1AC. It also shapes our 1AC construction to maximize disagreement with the resolution, ensuring large and testable positions. 2. Dogmatism, allowing non-topical apps to monopolize competition standards creates a perverse incentive to race to truisms and polemics. Next off. Nuclear weapons strengthen deterrence, preventing nuclear global civil war. Alternatives to international anarchy are untenable and far more violent. Mark 19. The desire to survive is common to all states and constantly exposed to risk. This uncertainty makes it impossible to today's terms to say our friend return to an enemy. If we work hard for law, survival would lose its value. Left return to a calculable formula. Ethics cannot be static, depends on openness to the future. Hospitality cannot be pure comfort to a static ideal. Ethics is tied to uncertainty, which fits within neorealism. It does not seek to close down by informing states how they should act or how they ought to become friends rather than enemies. Friendship is possible only if open to deception. It is not self-evident that friendship over enemy is better. A system that eradicates violence would be able to reward. The constant possibility of war means the states will always be wary. That limits manipulation, moderates demands, and serves as an incentive for settlement of disputes. Any attempt to challenge the neorealism must do so by replacing one structure of social survival. There can be no guarantees the new attempt will not result in even more violence. Will fascist discourse far more violent will emerge. The absence of common goal makes ethical negotiations possible. Universal ethical idea that embraces everyone everywhere while retaining the system is problematic. Consider deterrence. That is to only to actively deter the nuclear threat. Only if war remains a constant possibility. What creates the possibility of nuclear war constitutes the conditions of peace. Case.
Skip the first two cards.
Discussing the global effects of nuclear conflict is valuable. Quarter 17. The possibility of Earth's carbon nuclear desolation suggests the vulnerability of humans in functioning by embracing shared power will become the opportunity to build new alliances. Contesting the identity of Cold War, for global warming. No one is exempt for fair. The emerged beyond necessity thinking of humanity was held in common beyond political nation, national difference. Passive war was not an attack on countries as on all people as species seen in peril called up shared identity. We disagree with nuclear bombs, which are the problem, but they represent inadvertent attempt to challenge nationals, problematize conceptual categories by which the human was understood. Anti-statism performs an ethical and existential failure by abandoning the ethical pursuit of revolution and power through the nation state. Yale 23. Contradiction is the resolution in energy commanding the state to frame crisis billions of individual ethical risk, ethics of care, risk obscuring its foundations and remedies. Anti-state unites within the capitals to reduce the state states to its policing functions. Extinction demand an ethical imperative changes that can only be on the level of state with the capacity and drive. Nations can be revolutionary, such as Southern Africa. Nations can be indigenous as with First Nations. On the level of nation, imperialist endeavors met with the most resistance being against a nation encourages acceptance of the U.S. as the world police. If we view it solely through the lens of the U.S., we will ignore conduct when empire does the alternatives. We can learn what not to do for the planet and our species. Do you want me to read Taiwan?
It's fine. You're good.
I have a minute.
Give me a second.
Okay, sorry, I need something too.
Or actually, can you send a Mark doc first?
Yeah.
Because we all know what happened last time. So, how about we get the Mark doc first?
Yo, that minute you cut off, can you use it for later speeches or?
No.
No.
What?
Okay, I'm just making sure.
That'd be
Like,
crazy.
I'm just like cutting off a minute. Cutting off a minute sounds wild.
Yeah, resuming the 1 and C is crazy.
Resume it right before the 2 AR. Okay, I just.
I tried everything else.
That's what I'm saying. Are you good?
Yeah.
Theoretical reasons to reject the team.
I mean, we think like topicality is a reason to reject the team,
But-
or a reason this debate shouldn't happen in the first place.
Oh, wow. So we should have talked about that previously.
I mean, no.
That's not what T says.
That's fine. Next argument, status of the off.
The status quo is always a logical option.
So condo, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Next
I
question.
mean, against new apps.
Why is voting neg good? Or why should you vote neg?
Well, our burden of the neg is just to prove that the app.
Well, no, I asked why should you, like, obviously he asked me
For the-
to vote,
for the
right?
context
my,
of-
my question is, like, why should
Oh,
you vote
wait,
neg?
sorry, you're talking about T for the
No,
picks,
it's like any
or
flow.
oh, like if we win the debate, no
Yeah.
neg.
But, like, why is that intrinsically good?
We think it's fair.
Okay,
And
that's
it
fine.
preserves
The
class.
alternative, what does it do to help black people?
Which alternative?
Do you want to make more critique as far as I know?
Well, so not the two. So okay, the
The
K.
cap K?
Yeah. Well, what do you mean? What is it?
We've read arguments.
Well, you said that. Well, I'm
We've
assuming-
isolated
You
K-
said that. Well, presumably the alternative solves the app. So what does the
Yeah.
alternative do to help
We've
black
isolated that it can incorporate strategies from the 1AC, including things like revolutionary organizing, things like the movements, the
So
long
it's just a
movements, the
tick.
1AC.
Yeah.
It isolates that. Instead, it rejects calls for academic benefits, things like what the Johnson. What the
So
Williams-
why is voting neg not a double turn of thought?
I'm confused.
You said that voting for gratification in the academy is bad. The alternative forces you to vote neg to do the same thing. Why is
Well,
it not a double
no,
turn?
you vote negative to decline voting AF, so it actually resolves.
So it's just like it's just the affirmative intrinsically. Like I'm pretty sure the Phillips article is about like
No.
like critical affirmation in the academy, not
I
about
want to
like,
clarify.
debate af neg. So I'm confused for why voting neg is not a double turn
I can-
with the critics affirmation in the academy.
I can answer this. We acknowledge that competition is inevitable. We acknowledge the judge is inevitably going to vote for someone and assign the ballot to someone.
Yeah.
We think that attaching the ballot to a political project is bad.
Why is that
So
not the critique?
we have no because the K says don't vote. It's not vote neg. It's don't vote af. The requirement of the neg is to negate the project the 1AC has proposed. We think we're doing that. We think that assigning a ballot to a political project is bad.
That's fine.
And that's
my,
not
my,
worth
my
it.
next question is the disad. The alternative tag is like Antarctic and ooh god. Anarchist economy or Antarctic like international order is worse. Who presumes that order? Who is that order?
Wait, I'm confused.
You
It's
said
talking about why
the alternative
alternatives to
says-
realism are
The
bad.
disad says that anarchy is bad. Who are the anarchists in
No.
the disad?
Lundberg says that realism, which presumes the world order is inherently full of anarchy and unpredictable.
The disad says alternatives to international anarchy are unpredictable. form of
Alternatives to
rival. What is
international
that?
anarchy.
What is that alternative? Like I'm confused. Who is that?
Well, if you propose something other than deterrence theory, other than neorealism, we think that's bad and is faulty for state.
So okay, I'm kind of confused. Like, will the disad say that there is a certain country that like?
But I think you're
Because
missing.
you said world civil war. But who is in the civil war?
We think that deterrence collapse would cause nuclear escalation globally because
With
states
who?
would no longer be constrained. Russia, China, states with nuclear powers.
That's all I needed. That's all you have to say.
Starting. Here, 918. Can you write that down? So I got it too. The order is case. The deterrence dissent. The NFU counterplan. Weapons pick. Cap K. And then framework.
Wait, sorry, one more time.
Yeah. Case, deterrence dissent, NFU counterplan, weapons pick, Cap K, framework.
Sweet.
Wherever you go to.
The bomb of anti-blackness is a nuclear force that reaches across civil society from slavery to mass incarceration to residential segregation. Black communities are Marxist disposal through the logic of civil defense in order to make nuclear weapons and simultaneously absorb its toxic effects for the benefit of a dominant white society. That's Hurley. This is an ongoing apocalypse that is raised through the pedagogical whitewashing of nuclear wars and incoming event and separation of structural violence from the nuclear complex. So when he reforms atomic futurism for disarming of the civil defense logic is a process of animesis in which we connect the future of nuclear arms to the past of slavery in order to envision worlds of black and brown liberation where the need for nuclear weapons and violent nation building do not exist. As a background evidence, the role of the ballast vote for the best black resistance project or J-Trim evidence says that black history is in nuclear movements is constantly erased, which creates the conditions for the violence set above, but bearing witness to the one he sees a form of post-memory that creates the conditions for a successful revolutionary practice. Failure to acknowledge the performance of the one he sees magnifies the uniqueness question of this argument. Try or die for the affirmative. Any presumption or argument is a racist argument that says default to the scope, which a theory of power says is based on white supremacy, which means reject the team. The Cordo evidence, University of Humanity decide. I will explain it later on the deterrence. They said the DL23 evidence. One, we are not anti-state. We're an Afrofuturist imagining of a world where civil defense logics of the U.S. has ceased to exist. Bear witness of projects like Cedar Resistance and Black Women Build show that we do engage in armed reforms fighting for or rank control. Next, before it gets to anything, Perfcon is bad. It produces disconnect activists that can conditionally engage in politics when it doesn't make them authentic to the just cause of the oppressed. The embedded conditionality in this means that they should not be trusted when it comes to matters of liberation. They said ballots bad, and then we said we should not win on other flows. They said picks that affirm the app, but then read deterrence. No strategic contention from one flow to another. Impossible to be app because the negative can read double terms, conceive one of them, and arbitrarily elevate link arguments, which is a voter pedagogical integrity. Deterrence this at one case outweighs violence is now massive and metaphysical to the U.S. Second, no link. We have disarmed the nuclear force of civil defense, not the weapon itself. Three, link turn an atomic genocide. This side we imagine a world where there's no need to use weapons, which takes out their impact scenario. Michu says that the desire to hold on to weapons is because we envision the attacks will racialize other on the homeland, which uses racism in the bomb itself by entangling our human instincts. The desire to use the bomb making conflict inevitable. That's Hurley. Four, interest converges. This at extinction kills black people too is a reluctant decision by white people to save black life, which creates exclusion from shelters and targeted death of black people before and after the bomb. The universalizing discourse of bombs don't discriminate. It historically excludes black women from entering shelters as Preston and Bagdanoff. Five, any offense. One, here, impact turns the model debate. Civil defense militarizes the mind and educational spaces to incubate anti-blackness. Preston no way refused to consider the debatability of the terms in the first place. Six, civil defense. This and nuclear weapons require black death to protect the U.S. code as white sovereign nations target black cities. First, white flights to the suburbs create black spaces. Dead space corporations like Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin use black prison labor in toxic facilities placed near black communities, all of which spilled onto deterrence logics and policing prisons, black neighborhoods, etc. That's Hurley. Seven, turn conventional wars destabilizing never works. Barrage. Eight, the Cuban Missile Group because of nuclear revolution police even though U.S. back over the government's use did not help you in our record against during Cold War. Each side engaged in conventional war, but acts of abilities to increase the able to target average state like people to recharge these really unstable theory assumes rational determination human psychology suggests this is absurd U.S. illness, dementia, or psychosis. Next, util deterrent logic is white supremacist. Next, I-23 been onwards better than World War III humans less as the lines are deemed more sacrifice and makes security but nukes when person work for nuclear weapons and non-promoted peace. These people one with the foundation deterrence and more superiority reveals their supremacy reducing lifestyle numbers of nuclear superline lost excessive digital innocent lives are lost in practice where they started. No impact unique for any east and error for deterrent or ends failing me. It means that I don't need to read impact events in specific countries. Now, the NFU counterplan. One, perm do both. Second, perm to the affirmative. Three, doesn't solve the out, doesn't create a nuclear weapons, which replicate civil defense logics. Four, links to the net benefit. Five, we, some people decide U.S. actor focus is racially exclusive because the government was created and written for white people. Six, government feel bad does not give us the skills to know what BS people can do to demand radical action. Seven, app solves the net benefit. We imagine a world civil defense logic of nukes is gone, meaning no first strike. Next, NFU is counterinsurgency. Atchison, so he represents that as an overtake also don't think comes from repackaging adjustment or never taking over or present illusion nuclear weapons continue to put everyone in pro nuclear or states that harms the production of for somebody purpose of competition peaceful for nuclear should not know if use have detract from determinant is not effective materiality of nuclear weapons is catastrophic because of a nuclear weapon deterrence. Next, we get a permit if it's not competitive. Arbitrary theory is racist because it puts double standards on people of colors debaters. Weapons pick. One, perm do both. Second, perm the F. Three, solve zero metaphors needed to achieve enemies is backed enough. Four, explosives are weapons. Bombing of boom organizations in Philly. Bombing of Tulsa in Oklahoma. Oklahoma are all used explosives in the war against blackness. 5, no solvency. They did not isolate a separate term to use. Their own evidence in the small text says mass extermination, but they didn't use it. 6, they said nuclear weapons on every other flow, which links to the perfect argument. 5, metaphors are created global solidarity. Malcolm X connecting the bomb of slavery to the bomb on Hiroshima with Yuri Kochiyama proves they are generated, not disingenuous. The Kappa 1 perm do both. Futurism is key to mobilize. They all can act as a filter to filter the energy through. Second perm to the Afro-Future builds the dual power black and brown liberation. 3, yes, perms in a method debate synthesis good. Innovates advocacy and uncovers where God in black history is not possible to the auto learn. B, optimized clash, forcing the false street on creates unnecessary infighting. 4, not defending a specific organization as a voter makes negative articulate and black impossible to predict unless it's by kind of swayzy offense. 5, making your ethical commitment to liberation of real color capitalism condition as a voter, which was in the on case 6 links turn the topic Afro-Futurism mobilizes people and results in gay state resistance successfully sued beings from landlords to ensure their tenants can stay in their homes. Black women bill provides institutional care for marginalized communities and restorative housing projects. 7, post memory disset the one that sees simultaneous embrace of accountability mechanisms and forgetting of the black women and communist movements responsible for creating those internal checks reproduces the disposability of blackness as needed but not wanted. That's early from I.W. Wells to Mamie T. Mobley. The apps post memory work of Afrofuturism is necessary to strengthen anti-capitalist movements. 8, mobilization disset the all is steeped in a history of racially exclusive class politics for the radical left still refuse to see black struggle in its own terms. 9, civil defense or 9, universalizing discourse disset cross apply from the disset above. The ballot pick embedded in this. 1, impact turn debating is good. 2nd, cross apply the role of the ballot during when it transforms the role of the critic. 3, no impact to the oppressor games. It's non-unique. 4, perm vote apt to decline Harvard's negation. They have outed themselves as the critic. The second ballot card, they want the ballot too, links back to them. Next, permutation refuse Harvard the ballot as a form of radical allyship. Next, no offense of the Williams evidence because we are impact turning the ballot pick on framework now. Go there now. 1, counter definition, some point A, impact turn US. We some people challenge this white exclusion. James 17, the racial crisis in our country, PA reviews of any US issues. We some people supposed to challenge the white normative agenda. We the people promote. Subpoint B, disarming to abolish American heritage. No day 2, abolish forces. Next, their definition of disarm is over limiting. Eglin erases in debasing the literature over particular weapons across all substance by letting the negative get away with generic deterrence. This has against disarm apps, which turns all of their terminal impacts to clash or fairness. Next, subpoint C, nuclear forces include infrastructures and communication. Lord Cornell, law no need to include nuclear weapons, nuclear infrastructure facilities, including personal infrastructure operation and maintenance. Next, forces can include discourse, Bridge 23, discourse define nuclear weapons or cultural artifacts for meaning for forces, social, economic, and social which produce them. We meet our interpretation on 2 levels. 1, civil defense is nuclear communication, precedent 08. 2nd is that infrastructure includes civil defense. Early 20 applicable forces, nuclear management, archiving, include officers against nuclear MIC, but in communities, most of the infrastructure, civil defense, civil, non-analysis, waste as weapon. Next, we some people disarm the nuclear forces of defense, which means we abolish civil defense discourse that racialize the use of nuclear weapons and imagine a world where we refuse the infrastructural disinvestment of black futures. Next, extend the counter model affirmative engaged revolution through radical state support, which means affirmative restriction of U.S. nuclear forces through critical perspective. This includes abolition, the irradiator international, Afro-Futures, and post-colonial revolt, and excludes acts that don't restrict nuclear forces. Preferred subpoint A, limits teams that don't defend a reduction in nuclearism can still lose the T, and it confines apps to be tied down to the core topic, which allows for negative generics. Prefer reasonability. There's no way to quantify and good is good enough, but over-limiting is worse because it crowds out self-altering anti-nuclear advocacy that will loosen the burn on the negative and whitewashes the topic. Subpoint B, negative ground is better. You can still read case students like the deterrence that said as long as you win a link and justify the theory, counter performances are generic critiques of better like futures versus pessimism, dual power versus anarchism, line back versus ground relationality because they promote liberation strategies over top-down approaches that re-entrench power relations. Next, extend the net benefits. Subpoint A, epistemological growth teams uncover the forgotten histories under nuclear Callahan, which leads to debate becoming a training ground for future activists such as Tia, Towson CL, creating leaders for a beautiful struggle, Fullerton, MMS, sorting of immigration law firms, etc., and performance building out. That's 20C Del Sol 23. Next, subject formation, KVK debates over the course of the season force you to rethink your perspective about the world through a pedagogy of the oppressed that shifts the purpose of politics to be liberatory instead of state. Now, their fairness arguments: 1, colorblindness, discount, procedural fairness and limits are standards that always break. Debates in favor of white upper class politics because our definitions for what is fair can only be created by those who had access to define it in the first place. 2nd, civil defense disset the fear that chaos ruined the activities of fusion with a fear of styles of debate code as black Afro-futures and demands that you recognize the linkages between conservative right-wing backlash and carry out and the use of framework as infrastructures to violent racist deterrents that demonize the ability for historically working class minority debaters to envision new futures that debate for themselves. 1, AC Hurley, Preston, and Michis argue that when this nuclear pedagogy is taught in the classroom, it gets exported to create racially exclusive spaces in times of crisis and produces academic decisions that always seek to reformulate nuclear policy at the expense of black life. 3, prefer liberatory fairness. The counter-interpretation expands the circle of fairness to allow for a diversity of arguments that less marginalized debaters explore different fields to export knowledge into anti-racist action. Prefer reasonability, not fairness. Err on the side of inclusion because over limiting the topic is racially exclusive. The clash arguments: 1, hegemonic anti-nuclearism. This rich evidence says that their division of ground results in disset counterplan debates that happen on the same hegemonic terrain. And if you view deterrence this sole purpose to promote U.S. over people of color. 2nd, cross-apply university panic disset. 3rd, cross-apply the atomic genocide disset. Now, at the very bottom, they conceded all of the judge instruction that Curtis gave you at the bottom of the 1EC. Christopher, you as a white person who engaged in Northwestern logics, up here are logics, coached by Jeff Clinton, and all these people mean that you should reformulate the logics of what you think counts as good forms of testing. Even though you don't, you might not understand the intricacies between dual power and other forms of anti-capitalist organizing, Afro-futurism versus Afro-pessimism. That doesn't mean that you should be the arbiter of what counts as good testing or good forms of clash, and instead you should leave it up to us to define it and inform you. And even if at the end of this debate you are still confused, you should still surrender or adhere to our definitions to recalibrate the history of debates and no longer be exclusive.
Wait, I'm sorry. Before cross-legs, I'm running back.
Was that there?
It's kind of been there for a while.
Was it here when you were doing it?
Don't tell
It's,
me.
it's yours.
Wait, do you
I
need
think
that?
it's no this one.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Okay, this is probably wrong.
Yeah,
That's all
but
yours.
that's
Yeah. I thought you were about to eat it. I'm not sure.
Eat it. I'm gonna get water.
Slipping things in.
I don't know where Diego went. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
Are you good for cross-legs?
Yeah.
Awesome. I just have a quick clarification question on topicality. Civil defenses, what civil defenses is the aptus arm?
The civil defense is a pedagogy that justifies the existence of the nuclear arsenal by consolidating white identity as a force to use nukes to protect that identity from other threats.
But something else I think is pretty important to clear up. It's also a double-sided coin, right? We think one, it is the ability for a nuclear arsenal to exist, but also the ways in which resolution and constant arbitrating of nuclear forces view nuclear weapons as a threat, which is what allows for us to determine
I
what is
understand
a
this
threat to
discourse
white life,
argument.
which is what allows for the killing of black and
I
brown
want to
people
ask
and
about
their
the
futures.
Hurley evidence, which seems to just be about apocalypse broadly and what infrastructure creates the apocalypse. I'm confused where it defines nuclear forces as including civil defense.
Apocalyptic force of nuclear tech, such as mundane life, expanding the archive includes authors against the nuclear military-industrial complex within communities most vulnerable to infrastructural violence, such as James Baldwin's critique of racialized urban spaces as a form of civil defense.
But where does that say civil defense is infrastructure?
Right, it says right there. It says that the apocalyptic force of nuclear tech expands it to include things within the nuclear military-industrial complex, right? The topic
But
is
this
more
doesn't
than.
say
Hold on.
infrastructure.
The topic. What?
But you
It
just-
says infrastructural violence.
Yeah,
so the
infrastructural
violence
violence
that is
refers to
done by
something-
infrastructures. Our
How do
argument
you
is that
disarm-
civil defense is a.
Hurley's entire book is about nuclear infrastructure. If you
So,
read the citations, what it says.
Yeah,
Okay,
and there are
it's-
two ways we
it's
disarm. I'll explain the two ways we disarm. The first one, civil defense, is a discourse that we have refused to engage in, right?
I
Because of
understand that,
performance
yeah,
law.
that's what
The
you-
second part is that the racialized urban space, i.e. the construction of the black ghetto, is itself a form of civil defense because it allows other nations that if the nuclear strikes were to ever occur, it would target black people first.
Oh,
and the
understood.
reason
That makes
reason
sense.
that occurs is because the racialization of black
Yeah.
space as a death base.
Which-
We disarm that through an Afrofuturist imagination that imagines black space as a future for liberation where black people are no longer targeted.
12
That
and
is the way
15.
we disarm. Oh, yeah.
I think it's 13.
I couldn't.
It's 13.
It's 13, 15. Sorry.
No, no, yeah, I know you meant this. The argument I wrote down not committing to liberation as a voter. Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's the making your ethical commitments to the liberation of people of color fungible, like making a condition as a voter because it fungibilizes their suffering for ballot.
Thank you. That's good. Yes. $535. Oh, 6:35. I'll say 6:30 to be safe. 6:35. Yeah.
What's up with it?
It's T.
Is there a card doc?
Yeah.
It's just T.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Oh, sorry. Our impacts outweigh one is procedural fairness. It's irrefutably an impact and certainly more than just an internal link. There's a reason Long Beach expects you to flow diligently, enforce speech times, and not inject your political proclivities in your final RFD. And there's a reason that if you egregiously divorced from those norms, Long Beach would be justifiably angry in post-round. That reason is fairness. Both teams are collectively bought into it, which means it matters greatly, full stop. It is also the only impact you know you can solve, because when a team violates fair procedure, you can quickly remedy the violation by not issuing that team the bout. New app also proves their fairness impact. Competitive incentives are the only reason they do not disclose before the round throughout any app argument about their lit being good, giving them a ground, any argument of debate not being game. If they wanted to have a discussion, they would have sent their app. Second is class. Policy debate is unique in certain qualities that make it exceptionally useful in developing certain skills. It is driven by competition and contestation, both of which force debaters to expertly back positions they might not always agree with, guided by hours of research and prep. This rewards and subsequently builds skills that are generalizable, like cognitive flexibility and critical thinking, which cannot be refined without head-to-head argumentation. Their counter-interpretation deletes debatability. One is reputation. Actions reward truisms like equity good or balance bad, which are uncontestable and uncontroversial, undermining the whole point of the rise. Second, that turns their impacts running the moral high ground towards the negative to defend violent positions like racism bad. It's generic. Second is shiftiness, waving Fiona's plan tax in favor of nebulous advocacies, Dex ground, even assets seem closer to the topic or no easier to negate because what he sees don't forward of a consistent vision of their arguments. Third is predictability. Our evidence outlines a vision of the topic which all debaters can actively prepare for. It's key to generics, which are best arguments on the topic, like deterrence and assurance as it preserves limits, not limiting the agent process for what he sees, result in the neg need to prepare for hundreds of acts. This is structurally impossible. It's a key internally to narrow and targeted research, which enables two well-prepared teams to debate each other. Their interpretation, which expands the burden of the neg by 100 times, cannot access class. They say, we the people, first I'll answer a couple case arguments that can be cross-applied. Rule of the judge on case is self-serving and arbitrary, linking to all our fairness offense. There's no perk on the rule of the neg to disprove the app. Also, if there were contradictions, they could have strategically conceded them to counter offense. There's no clear impact to this either because it does not affect the overall trajectory of the debate, because the two and will only go for one position that is not contradictory. We, some people, links to all our offense above. Using the federal government is key to garnering links. The discount card there concedes that it's about weapons. It's American Heritage Dictionary. No date. They say nuclear forces are infrastructure. This is not the app. Cornell law requires the nuclear force to relate to nuclear weapons and its related delivery platforms, infrastructure, and facilities. Affirmative disarmament is not related to any of these, which means that even if our interp is flawed, they do not meet their own counter-interp, which is the reason to vote neg on presumption. But it makes limits ginormous because there are millions of pieces of infrastructure that the app could possibly affect. There are no limits on. They say we meet, it doesn't. They never use the federal government to confine nuclear warheads within limits of action. But if it does meet that essential one is assurances, abandonment fears are being held at bay for now. But restraining nuclear forces, shadows, promises of extended transferring nuclear arms races, not impending response to impending global threats. Cat 23. Korea build nuclear weapons. Ask the U.S. The points you doubles indicate the U.S. allies are going concerned about Washington's assurance commitments. Unease is growing to Japan about U.S. commitments. 70% of Korean support going nuclear. 80% of Japanese concerned China, NOCO, and Russian threats. U.S. should shore up the charts. Apparently, basing imposing and led by even the best of times. Ukraine requires commitments. Allies not just U.S. has capabilities, but also the will use baseline now is predictable and normal have threats from NOCO. China and Russia created urgent counter the Trojan Soul worry. U.S. is either unwilling or able to address allies who consider involvement with the U.S. Downgrade alliances. Wonder whether Washington will make committed Biden. Ready to commit to the defend, but these efforts not to distinguish concerns. Nuclear commitments invite doubt. You should has said they created involves its own nukes quickly into the support of the public. Skeptics and interpreters and comments prove that alliances outdated. So few points rightly acknowledge the problems and program issues, including regional nuclear arms race, nuclear Korea, which train the alliance in Japan, creating friction Tokyo's relation with the Seoul, Australia. We'll worry about that effect in China. Alliances manage China, climate, pandemic, supply chain problems. U.S. will need to continue shoring up deterrence. If they cross by the argument they made on deterrence that they delete all nuclear weapons internationally, that is clearly A voting issue, certainly not topical, does not use only the U.S. It's also an independent voting issue. Multi-actor international fiat is impossible to debate against because it guarantees the World Peace Counter Plan. Second is conventional shift plan, drives the boot and development of non-nuclear options. About 21. Issuing sole purpose would be powerful to ensure that campaign plans are predicated as something for contingencies. Nuclear weapons would be unlikely to process and finding would incentivize planners to develop non-nuclear concepts that unlocks hypersonic development at scale. 23. Defense is enough in hypersonic weapons, but once again, rare scaling is out of interest. The lock of a clear demand signal. DoD's way, but if the copies supposed to they will receive return on investment, which turns case U.S. hypersonics for destabilizing, spurs arms racing, and miscalculable Canadian IT. The question arises whether conventionally armed hypersonics would threaten survival of Russian ICBMs, threatening survival tries to destabilizing would induce China, Russia, and China to modernize ICBM forces, lead to arms instability. Russia or China would not launch a warning. Hypersonic weapons create problems, warhead ambiguity, inner adversary, but not know whether an incoming strike is nuclear or conventional. They say radical stasis point. Treating the resolution as a radical stasis point destroys fairness and clash. One is limits. The entire point of radicalism is that it massively expands the scope of what is possible. That could be great in theory, it probably is, and it's likely to include many good ideas, but it's terrible when the neg is forced to defend against each and every radical proposal that is literally limited only by the imagination for predictable stasis points rather than ed-based definitions and preserves generics like assurance and deterrence. Neg seems prepped against a manageable number of apps that use the federal government. Second is vagueness, so the vagueness. There's no agreement on what is radical, even if the term is hypothetically good. It's impossible to execute actual squirrel out of credible T violations which claim they're not radical by saying that they are, which is useless, heuristic, and impossible to resolve. They are not reasonable. They diverge from those predictable. Reading the resolution, adding thousands of apps. Each new app is a brand new case tag. The neg was perhaps especially because there's no core generic that answers every app allowed by the model. They say functional limits. One, they're unpredictable. Even if ground against your app exists, time is limited. We cannot scour the internet for thousands of possible apps under your interrupt and cut case tags, especially when the app was new. Second, concessionary. You only gave us ground because you know Topicality acts as a limit. If T did not exist, apps would quickly run to the least controversial positions. They say epistemological growth about solves nothing of the sort. Apply defense of on your flow, dropping one argument here is absolvency. One is all causes our family, school, curriculums, friends, and religion impact our subjectivities more. Second is switch side community against arguments we right, disproving any cognitive attachment to them. Third, line teams read verifiably incorrect arguments like warm and good, knowing that they are scientifically disproven. Fourth, background noise. It's logically impossible for the ballot to encourage adoption of unpredictable interpretations because each K team offers a different vision of the topic and there's nothing else that goes on tap except a win or loss. Five, non-verifiable. There's zero way to measure whether someone thinks differently, and there's definitely no way to tell whether the ballot caused it. Six, blocks change, not people. If we lose, we'll just upgrade our T blocks, not research your app or modify your worldview. Seven, recoil. Any research that we do perform will be in response to your app to the extent that worldview can be changed. It changes in the opposite direction. They say KBK debates. One, no clash. Everyone disagrees. Second, team makes them good to the extent that there is clash in those debates. It only exists because active teams feel an obligation to stay closer to the resolution in fear of T. Otherwise, we'd say we affirm that 2 + 2 = 4, or we affirm that racism is bad and move on with their day. Third, still unfair. Even if they're reasonable, apps tend to win these debates because you get perms. Fourth, there's no exclusion. KBK debates can still occur under our interpretation. Critical conversation about conventional shift, impact terms of deterrence, military spending, and nuclear testing and acquisition are all germane to nuclear force and can produce valuable open-ended scholarship that make arguments that fairness is rigged for white people. One, this round disproves you expect the judge to properly flow and expect speech times to be adhered to. Those the overview. Second, fairness is anti-black. The entire reason why segregation and racism were bad was because they were unfair, making the world a more fair place, resulting in equitable distribution of resources, and eliminating white privilege. If this becomes an argument about structural unfairness, we will answer that now. One, procedure comes first. Resource disparities are inevitable and they're unsolvable by a win or a loss, but the judge can strive for procedural fairness by voting on teams to imbalance debates. Second, turn. Well-resourced schools take advantage of an unlimited topic, breaking new and unpredictable chaos every round that are unchecked by topicality. Third, debate becomes an oppression Olympics, tweaking the rules to artificially grant handicaps to teams with structural disadvantages, devolves into comparing marginalized races, gender, socioeconomic statuses, etc. That's bad. They make an argument about the PRL. One, no link. We think K's are good. A, on the neg, where engagement is predictable for both sides. And B, on the app, for the plan that calls for topical action. Second, it's not us. We are not the same as any previous iteration, violent iteration of framework. If our model is racist, they should be able to beat it without reference to history. They say liberatory fairness that's distinct from procedural fairness, which only the ballot can solve, and knowledge exploitation was answered above. Group, the hegemonic anti-nuclearism and the atomic genocide just had one. Debating the merits of nuclear war does not justify the genocide of people of color. Their critique brackets out long histories of intersectional mobilization against the threat of nuclear war, which is racist revisionism that should be rejected in 2020. Jobs, racial equality, climate change, war, class, gender, and nuclear weapons are all connected, with the most important thing, human right being the freedom to live free from the fear of nuclear war. Country the narrative that remains a white issue. The anti-nuclear movement is included diverse forces. Airless critics for the economic sciences, WILPF, and many black community nuclear weapons were originally linked to racism. Huge assertion that racism was a part of transition used to nuclear weapons or panja. Ropes and Black Lives Matter are not only speaking out about racism in the U.S., but also highlighting where the U.S. obtained its material to avoid Black Lives Matter met, getting millions to sign the ban the bomb pledge. Rust and Black Lives Matter met, traveling to Ghana to stop France from testing its first nuclear weapon in Africa, and Hansbury Black Lives Lives Matter met nuclear abolition mark the card at nuclear abolition. Second, justifies the TVA's helpful versions of CSU's act can include acts that advocate nuclear disarmament as their method. Advantages can then describe how nuclear infrastructure siphons social welfare, which contributes to austere economic conditions that perpetuate the kinds of impact the 1AC talks about. Furthermore, acts that impact certain core targeting asides like deterrence and as unsustainable and violent military architectures, which are substantiated by 1AC Ricci and Atchison. Third, it also proves that we don't relegate the act's pedagogy to just the next side. In fact, 1AC reads cards for the TVA that speeches 2 to approach anti-racist practice pedagogy and error to understand fully its episode of debits in the case of nuclear power mark the card at nuclear power. They say, they reference judge instruction, they say leave it to us even if you're confused. It's a terrible model. One, there's no role for the neg. Being on the wrong side of the pair against a team that gets to decide what is or is not good is an auto loss for them. Second, it's violent. Their interpretation uniquely condones horrible people, endorses the voice of Candace Owens, for example, who called Black Americans the most murderous group ever.
I need to ask about that shit.
Yeah, hold on. Clarify that.
What?
That Candace Owens stuff.
Yeah. Said really bad stuff. So if the role of the judge is to defer to people because they're black or marginalized,
Why did we say that?
That's not the
the
role of the
2AC
We didn't say that.
the 2AC makes arguments that you should leave it to us, even if you're still confused, because you are a white person engaging in PRL, but you know better. If that's true, these are the exact arguments that Candace Owens can make to white people.
You
Because
flowed that wrong. You flowed that wrong. It's okay. We'll clarify. We'll clarify.
Sure.
In Topicality, top of the thing says that jobs, racial equality, climate change, and nuclear weapons are all connected. It seems like this is an AF card because it gives a list of black organizers who recognize that we should be anti-nukes because it can't be separated from the apocalyptic conditions of anti-blackness. So
I mean,
not topical?
I agree that anti-nuclear movements could be part of the 1AC, but the problem is that those anti-nuclear movements do not call for U.S. action, which the Entente card says previous organizers have done, which we think would be good.
So here's the thing, right? It's like, I think there's a distinction between the ways people call for anti-nuclear action.
I
so
agree.
WILPF, how did Angela Davis advocate?
Well, let me answer the first premise of that question, which is that there
are different ways to advocate for nuclear disarm. I think that's like for sure a thing.
I totally agree with that.
People who advocate for TPNW and NFU, different people. So
Yeah.
WILPF, so people like Angela Davis were part of that. How did Angela Davis advocate for nuclear disarm?
I mean, there are certain protests and anti-nuclear movements that the people could have been involved in. Angela Davis, I think a quote is that, like, there's a failure of institutions in our country in which nuclear weapons have been produced and recreated.
Why is
and
that
calling
why is
on that failure,
failure,
calling for the U.S. to reverse that failure is a good thing.
Okay, but how do they do it?
So, what do you mean?
Oh my
Like if Angela Davis, hold on. I have.
Okay, how about this? I'll give you an easier one. Coretta Scott King.
No. I was researching Angela Davis before the round.
Okay,
I was looking at her TVA.
I've already
And the argument was that it is about dismantling nuclear weapons. One that calls on the U.S. government to dismantle nuclear weapons.
Do you think Angela Davis would agree that the U.S. Constitution was written by and for white people?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
What do you mean? You were just researching Angela Davis?
I mean, like, this is the entire point of topicality. If the burden of the negative is to have researched like every part of, what radical nuclearism could be connected to, that is an untenable burden for the negatives to have to endorse.
Can you tell me about like Langston Hughes and the way that he asserted anti-nuclear advocacy?
I'm sure I can.
Okay.
Called for anti-nuclear weapons. Called for nuclear weapons to be abolished.
That's a vague assertion.
I agree that there are a bunch of different strategies that different movements have tried to endorse. We think that a lot of the strategies can be good, but the one that the YC must defend is one that calls on the U.S. government to abolish nuclear weapons.
Racism at the heart to use nuclear weapons in Japan, or is race a nuclear force? If it's at the heart of the decision?
No.
Why not?
Because we have defined nuclear forces as the warheads and the infrastructure that develops the warheads, or that delivers the warheads.
Okay. Sounds like a misappropriation of history. Is the winner of the deterrence decide?
It's not.
Oh,
Okay.
The order is weapons pick,
Yeah.
the NFU counter plan, the deterrence disad, case, and the ballot pick.
Wait, my bad. You gotta do that again.
Yeah, weapons pick,
Oh.
NFU counter plan.
Weapons pick. NFU counter plan.
Yeah, then deterrence,
Okay.
then case, And I think the ones you called it academic capitalism or whatever it was called, but it's just the ballot pick portion, it's the second half.
Wait, hold on. 6.
Okay, yep.
You know, yeah. Okay, 628.
Anyone not ready?
You said. Hold on. I see. Okay, I'm good.
Weapons pick, not going for no offense or rotation elsewhere, and if you count plan concede, perm not going for no offense here, deterrence is not going for deterrence is bad fails, but this is not offense on T. The critique proves debates around deterrence are good because there's a reciprocal limp base, their answers are index of deterrence logic and recent nuclear war is bad for people of color, truth which it is good, it resolves offense here, or it's into IT elsewhere case, proof con, it's not a voting issue, and the negative only is the burden of the rejoinder, just as when the F is a bad idea, we get to test the F multiple angles, let's get to force the F into strategic thinking is the most real world, B, it's also key to test every level of the 1AC, we should be able to test their frames of the world, but also see that even under their frame, they are still wrong, anything else creates argument and irresponsibility, C, Connor justifies will be below. Performance is not uniqueness for them. T disproves or the pick subsumes it. Now, the K. The ballot is not only not key to the 1AC, but also rendered its revolutionary aims impossible. 1. Academic capitalism. Capitalism relies upon the accumulation of not just goods, but ideas. Dealing with reach its tipping point. It relies on academic criticism as another means of extraction. Winning debate rounds is fleeting. Seems to go further. Capitalist aims at working in organizations that are subservient to market dynamics. The ideas we glean for debate are reformed. The catharsis makes us feel good about changing things by tweaking epistemologies. The quest for legitimacy of the ballot represents the placebo effect. Ask yourself, what value do you add to the 1AC was lacking? If the criticisms of debate are correct, what's the point of progressing within it? The answer is none. That's dangerously trades off with other routes that can be effective. That's Phillips. It outweighs. Capitalism is unsustainable. Becoming 23. Capitalism against a recent planetary matters like essential to little planet exponential rise of population, CO2 force loss, water usage, ossification, species exchanging, global ecological system, risk of lab, corporate capitalism, opposed to ecological sustainability, social machine oriented toward infinite money. The capitalism will continue to front limits and exceed these systems will only hijack control to the ways of direct attention from composite money and ginger continues every weakened environmental regulation profit motive will never be able to accommodate ecological challenge. There's can be no meaningful and effective corporation to ensure economic welfare. Their speech had a value in of itself, not because it was viewed by you and its meaning exists only in the moment. It attempts to later connect to the value gives too much power to the audience because the speaker is structurally blocked from controlling representation of representations. Ticks. Performance is only a life to the present. Performance participant is circular representation, exchange between art and the viewer, the between suites on the house was controlling. All come to a better performance, collective machinery, reproductive representation, necessary calculation, capital, the present by which we put others' words in our own, realize that substitutional economies and equivalents, all reestablish performance, reviews this, a number of people can be expertise the value, which leaves no trace as to running about it, cancels their chase, the taken argument, defense for reproduction, is strength to surveillance, judgment, winners, arguments, objects, not protest, scholarly dissection is legible, not comprehensible, right, which spans by dominant power relations, prominence in advancing in the tournament, also as this effect seems go to your wiki, find analytics, and compile follow flows from negation and compete judgment, that's Phillips. 3. Intrinsic motivation, the amount is a poor vehicle will change with the solidarity or an extrinsic incentive. 93. Significant performance increase will depend upon intrinsic motivation with competitive activities. The world is winning that this beating the other teams as the world is extrinsic motivation undermine intrinsic motivation adversely affect performance. Extrinsic motivation are not only ineffective or corrosive, they eat away the kind of motivation that does produce results. Trying to beat another tends to do intrinsic motivation for activity when people can be rewarding in its own right, even when there's a change. Ephemeral. Code 93. Trying to beat others is predictable in the short run if you're over the long haul. Working together benefits all individual social change can only team with the collective action supersedes individual reward. The achievement of short run often means illogical, more radical struggle. This is precisely why you divide and conquer such an effective strategy for maintaining status quo. Stifles change, specifically placing too much extrinsic value on the ballot is destructive, heightens the interpersonal violence, and mitigates quality of thinking. Code 17. Students are asked whether they disagree. They're trained to stay economers, controls, topic debate, or troubling. It's better to hash them out together to vote. Conflict for states, not conflict. That doesn't always work. So what makes it discriminate destructive competition when framed as to be a point becomes winning rather than what's true? The extrinsic goal of winning dimension intrinsic curiosity. Mark at curiosity.
Civil defense is an anti-black nuclear force that consolidates white identity together and marks the black face as a death space, atomic effort free to disarm by refusing to gain civilization discourse and imagine black face to be liberatory for black life. Bearing witness to the performance of Lacey is urgent because it concedes the unique question that black anti-nuclear advocacy is a race and tradition narrative of nuclear forces, which is the sole evidence for me that we established about the key claim, but they do not refuse to respond to the music of the performance, means that they're performative, and then that they're not grappling with, to prove that you should vote no affirmative. They haven't grappled with any of the case, but proves that 100% absolution. This I go to now when they drop that any offense will want to hear me that we in fact turn normal debate. Civil defense is a law that permits in educational spaces and military the mind. Save yourself first for black people. Reminder that they dropped the civil defense. This had clean straight with me that you flowed right to. The present A evidence says that they justify the debatability on deterrence on the ethical level, or they lose their entire thesis will be that you should refuse the debate. The deterrence it required black death to mean that we're winning a functional secretly question. They had two justifications. One was the purpose obviously, but Zach they dropped that disac the DA counter playground is bad. Our model debate solid any ground laws with critiques, but also the second argument that I see here people of color, and that was it. They dropped 3 impact turn 3 deterrence convergence inside with zero any net benefit. Their model all offers versus the intra-convergence inside the theory power means that in order to win the decide, they must win that nukes are good for black life, and 16 kills black people too is not an answer because it's how white people reluctantly save black life in order to secure white future. We perpetuate black death, the universally discourse of bombs, and not discriminating historically include black women for entry shelters, that's precedent and magna. And also, second, the civil defense inside drop nuclear weapons require black death to protect the U.S. coded white sovereignty nation, target black cities first because U.S. justifies urbanization on the idea that white families could afford to skate the bomb as a hurry evident new corporation like Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin produce prison labor, use black permanent labor, toxic facilities that are placed near black communities, which all spill down the terms logic and policing, prison not neighborhood, etc. That's hurley that impacts are unfairness because civil defense creates unfairness, i.e. the example they gave are all possible to civil defense. Next, they force you to engage in white supremacy and utility logic where white lives are infinitely used to outweigh the lives lost in proxy war when debating the terms causes hundreds of thousands of lives lost in Iraq, Vietnam, Afghanistan, etc. all become numbers on the flow that sees their model debate promotes that racially consulting white identity. That's a hard chapter in the head like anti-nuclear discipline is going to be on framework. The ballot pick enter now. One balance are good. The competitive nature debate forces us to challenge the nature of our world state. Next, the cars of false is a false equivalency. This has nothing about wanting to win cause the end of the world. Is the civil defense logic that views black and the subversive reasons to reject the team cross-fly. Do you need to question on case a magnify black region? Next, our Africanism. Our framework disproves our karma produces good people. Will be later also their wrong battle results their argument finding to reject these shitty LD arguments that depict the distinction without a different link to the cell because they want the battle. Also, no impact on the oppressive gaze, not unique and only African solved by reconfiguring the role of ballot through bearing witness. Next, perm do both, or perm drop, perm vote after the decline hard negation. They allow themselves to the critic, which they drop. Also, reaffirm because the double turn and reason to vote the now allows for a party spectator like UT to make a decision. But out of friction, go to the framework now. Callahan does structure for you to reevaluate your paradigm. Think what's the testing and reasonability on classroom testing arguments. Use a white person who's based on the to understand your metric of what good classroom testing is in the particular frame that's biased towards traditional methods of debate that are not for UDL people, which is a drop argument. Also, external definition 1, USG the contract convert because the challenge white supremacy that's drop B, the resolving end line that's very west D, disarming the biological forces that includes infrastructure, which includes civil defense as a corner of the Hurley metaphor, but next are good. They drop that predictable as well. Prefer reasonability proves that our definition of civil defense will solve all our offense and reasonability outweighs that counter model extended now our interpretation that we should engage the resolution around the 6 point we solve all our standards. 1 is limits T teams that don't defend the resolution reduction of nuclear can still lose a T next for reasonability. I did that word above. Also see negative ground is better. You can still read case certain like the turn as long as you have a link and justify through your power conferences and generic critiques like featuring for defense and dual power for the anarchists, land back for the ground rationality, all benefitly pro liberation strategy over top down purchase that reinterest state power. Also that export for the people, Lisa Andrade, Brennan Monte, David Lum, where all people who engage on model one become active outside space means that the counterpinted has material spill out claim. Next, that benefits one pits small growth. The more you're forced to engage cated, the more you learn about history, that online pedagogy you express makes a better people. That's meant also revolutionary class, all their offense, they ground like case or counter, etc. Also their offense against an app, you could argue that after featuring is bad, picks out the bearing witness, etc. See predictability and did the work above. They said we don't meet, yes we do. The counterpinted debate, the counterpinted prove that we meet. You drop that civil defense and nuclear infrastructure. I love the communication infrastructure that's hardly richly disarmed. We had to not make any sense again. So mother definition of what disarm could mean, which we mean one of them when they drop. They said they don't know what radical means, but since find the critical theory, more liberation of people color ground on the topic. Fairness go to now one colorblind in this app. Procedural fairness limits are set all great debates in favor of white upper classes because our definition about what fair can only be possible with people who had the ability to define the first place, i.e. the PRL, the civil defense had dropped this, so you should extend it straight through. The fear that chaos ruling activity, the fear of styles can start debate code is black Afro-Fusion demands you recognize linkages between white reading black lives and PRL and use the framework at infrastructure of violent races deterrence that dehumanize the ability for historically working class minority debates and vision future deterrence for themselves. It's when you see Hurley, Preston, and Michi straight C. They dropped that you should prefer liberatory fairness and counterpretation expands the circle of fairness allowed for diversity arguments that lends smartized debates for different fields to justify your anti-racist action grow after reasonability for fairness. The class debate goes to now 1 extend the hegemonic anti-nuclear disab cross-apply all impacts are the disab, but also the
cross-apply all the dissets.
cross-apply all the disab we did above. Where do you want me to go to now?
The answer we said the we mean.
Oh, they said that we meet our own inter, not that we meet all the disab go away, even if you think do that you apply, but also cross-apply link to it, they dropped on the disab, also link to it, top disab, we imagine warriors, no need to use weapons, takes all the impact scenario, also dropping the link argument of the disab, we disarm civil forces, not nuclear ones, which means that they look at the shotgun, the new disab, the block inspects the answer, when impactors like deterrence. Also, they say hypersonics are not unique, they exist now, and assurances are racist, I hope the NBT go to the TV.
Before you go to the TV, we need to clarify this. We did not say we meet their
Yeah,
insert.
we didn't say
we said we meet our own
insert,
insert, which means the logic of their
which means
dissent goes away.
The dissent goes away. The
Right.
TVA go to now one. This is an AF card that gives talking to the AF card gives an example of like organizing who came to the conclusion that we should be anti-nuclear because it cannot be separated from populist because the backwards media we meet the counterpation. Also, racial dissent and moral traditional debates will always head over nuclear posture and they were taken into seriously. Intra-convergent dissent, you can cross-apply here. Also, humanitarian, all the civil defense dissent cross-apply here. Swiss had debate 1, the cross-apply all dissent, the class education, every impact here to deterrence magnify.
rise and the anti-nuclear coastal team.
15 seconds left. They said fairness is anti-black.
They said fairness is anti-black.
Their weaponization,
Their
of fairness is
weaponization
anti-black.
is anti-black because they've used examples like Clarence Thomas and Kenneth Owens as weaponizations against black people. We obviously don't align with those things, which means that their model of debate encourages racist actions and authenticity checking, which is bad.
Yeah. No, never mind. Never mind. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Right. No, don't. Right.
uncertainty. Okay. Yeah, no worries. Just because something is good does not mean you have to get involved. The value of the 1AC is self-evident and does not need external validation by a debate judge to become actualized. Decline to connect their performance to a need for the ballot by voting negative. Granting them the ballot can only be harmful. They say ballots solve our offense is functionally a link turn to the K, which they cannot go for when they dropped our links to the K. Link turns can never outweigh links that were dropped. Each link is a dissect to the model. First, impact voting. Advertising the feel-good politics empowers capitalism. The neoliberal ideal relies not only upon commodification of goods, but also upon commodification of ideas. By treating an aft ballot as crucial to achieve the revolutionary aims, you only further the catharsis capitalism wants you to feel. This is especially true in the research and methods they forefront are academic. This university setting has been historically marketized to continue to extract surplus value under the guise of trying to critique capitalism. Begoni, the feeling card is also incredible. You should acknowledge that their speech carried weight and value in and of itself, but not because it was viewed by you as ephemerally powerful, but to try to represent and reaffirm it with the ballot is the exact logic that underwrites a neoliberal economy of reproduction. Phelan is incredible. She says performance is good because it, quote, clogs the machinery of reproductive representation necessary to circulation of capital, which is its greatest strength. Also means they can never ever solve case. Phillips says that the quest for legitimacy through ballots creates a placebo effect that deflects from real change. The trade-off is one-to-one. If their criticisms of debate and are correct, then investing time and energy in building movements from here instead of elsewhere are oppositely effective. Capitalism must come first on your RFD that was dropped. For one, it is a system which undergirds the harms that what it causes, racism, etc. might exist outside of capitalism, but it is capitalism which supports the institutions that make those prejudices violent. Independently, it's the biggest impact. We're streaking past planetary limits for CO2 level, species loss, and water usage because of disastrously negative externalities that capitalism forefronts. It's Begoni evidence. Ending co-option of the academy is key. It's a generative source of idea building and norm setting. Shifting its form away from neoliberalism is a good first step. Second impacting link is surveillance. Judgment renders zero argument an object of analysis within the gaze of the academy, not an expression of protest. Scholarly dissection makes it legible and comprehensible to you. Right for surveillance by dominant power relations, a diffuse critical potential. The win also has its effects. Prominence and advancing in turn it brings scrutiny and analysis. The transformative effect is backwards. Exposure does not produce change. The dominant culture co-ops them. That's Phillips evidence. The third impact and link is intrinsic motivation. Even if you think all other impacts on your flow are wrong and the app is correct about its revolutionary potential, you still vote neg. Psychological studies on this question are robust. By granting external rewards like the ballot to worthwhile projects that when they see you are actively hurting them. Instead of tying motivation and notions of success to the project itself, extrinsic rewards rewire our brains to become less intrinsically invested in research and buy-in. The impact is highly corrosive. Cohn says rewards like the ballot have been shown to sap the kind of motivation which does produce results, and even when there is change, it's productive only in the short run, which they've conceded, which means they cannot win any of their ballot key arguments, wins, rounds, and even entire resolution of the entire debate careers are in the end fleeting. What matters most is how we can create long-term, lasting change. Cohn studies that by providing extrinsic awards in a competitive space for revolutionary aims, we do permanent damage to our incentive structure. It precludes collective action towards a visionary goal because we've been trained to beat others for individualistic reasons. Worse than even that, the best and newest evidence says that these intrinsic rewards, extrinsic rewards for political goals produce outsized negative effects. Setting people against each other undermines psychological health, concern for others, and quality of thinking, all outweigh since they're directly tied to your use of the ballot for revolutionary aims, not just your use of the ballot generally, which we'll answer on the turn later. Now, they make two arguments about ballots being good. Both were extremely shallow in the 1AR. If the tour makes a big deal about them, you should be highly skeptical about believing their warrants, or you should strike them off your flow if you cannot connect the warrants in the 2AR to warrants in the 1AR, of which there are none. One, they say they force us to challenge our beliefs. The ballot is not the thing that does this. They have conceded our arguments about intrinsic motivation, which says the thing that challenges our beliefs is intrinsic motivation to research topics and to be involved in political projects, but not ones like the ballot, which are external rewards. Second, they make an argument about the false equivalency dissent. I think this sums up to the argument that voting neg steals our labor. The entire thesis of the pick has impact turn this. It's not stealing their labor, but fighting to endorse it with a ballot. But if they try to go for this, or if I've misinterpreted it, that should not be held against us because there are no warrants in the 1A argument. It's not a reason to vote Av, drop the arbitrary theory violation should be rejected because they crowd out substance which turns research practices. Now, the double turn arguments are nonsensical. The alternative is not voting for Harvard. It's not voting. It's not voting for them. Competition is inevitable. You will inevitably have to vote for a team. Fulfill your judging obligation. All of our offense proves tying the Av's political strategy to the ballot, however, ensures it fails, which means you should vote negative lest you doom the strategy to failure. The alt is not political, rather just says judges to interpret speeches and decide debates. Answers permit the Av to decline Harvard. Either way, vote neg on presumption if you conclude the ballot case correct. One link turns case. Every argument above proves there's a negative impact associated with attempting to affirm the political strategy. That means the Av is not only doomed to fail tied to the ballot, but that voting for it recreates external negative impact. Second is negation theory. The role of the neg to prove the Av. If we won the Av's call for the ballot and political strategy are bad, you should vote for the negative because we have fulfilled our duties as a team that was assigned to be negative. But two pieces of terminal defense. One, this is a question of scope. If we're correct that attaching ballots to political projects are bad, we still win, even if they think we also attach ballots to political projects because we did it less. We start sliding scales on yes/no questions. An app that disarms one weapon system might link to the politics dishead, but an app that disarms the entire nuclear arsenal links to dishead more. They've made several arguments about collecting the political project, much more than we have. Second, if you think that there is a double turn, you can kick the alt as an endorsal of the political project and vote on the links as reasons why they are double turns and internal link turns to solvency. Now, framework, it's not a double turn, there's no explanation, we're also not going for it. Negation theory and conditionality proof, we get to go for it. Now, framework. There are several reasons that we claim that the ballot failed on that flow, which are presumption ballots, or either reasons of the ballot case true. First is all causality activity is important debaters, and we are not arguing that it can never change how you think, but that process happens iteratively and over many years, which is subsumed and outweighed by the impact that our family, schools, relations, and friends have on us. Second is switch side. It proves that we have no cognitive attachment to the arguments that we read over time because of the ballot. You might read the NFU app one round, have to turn around and negate the exact same app the next round, which proves that the arguments that you read are not arguments that cause epistemological connections, which means that there's no impact to the app.
Yeah. 212. Yeah. I'll see it right here. No, I'll see it right here. Just put on the paper. pencil, bro.
Alright, just the fix. Alright, good? Perfect. Okay.
From the beginning of this debate, they have conceded the ontological question that anti-blackness is an apocalyptic nuclear force in the status quo. From slavery to Jim Crow, from segregation, mass incarceration to gentrification, black space is marked as a dead space, both infrastructure and discursively. This is a civil defense logic that requires black death in order to cohere the nuclear order. We have advocated Afrofuturism in this space to dismantle the way that civil defense as a pedagogy spills goes all the way down from nuclear forces all the way down to in this space. Since the 2AC, they have dropped on the diss that the civil defense is incubated in educational spaces, i.e. it is militarized in the mind for you to be scared of black future, scared of a world where black life thrives, scared of a world where black life can have a roof over their head, scared of a world where black life doesn't have to be scared of to the doctor. Conceding the uniqueness question that these types of futures are constantly erasing the status quo means that bearing witness to the 1AC is good. They conceded the top of the 2AC and the one-year overview such as the J trim and the 1AC does show evidence that says that bearing witness to these forms of performances in the 1AC is good, and that dropping the music example shows that they are not, shows that the pig has zero solvency. Bearing witness is good. The two evidence that I just list two examples. First, it gives the example of Memito Mobley having an open casket for her son's murder of Emmett Till. Having an open casket catalyzed movements such as the civil rights movement, which means that bearing witness to the performance of the 1AC is good because it mobilizes people to engage in activism later. The second example is Billie Holiday. Her example of nuclear jazz and using strange fruit to criticize lynchings in the South is what mobilized people to protest as lynchings in the first place. This is a key framing issue because it means that the performance of the 1AC, i.e. the music that Curtis displayed at the top, the narratives inside the 1AC are a key thing that you must vote on affirmative for. There is no way that you can vote negative for Harvard because there's nothing that they have done to engage with the performance of the 1AC, which is the uniqueness question that we have isolated since the 2AC and has been dropped throughout this entire debate. At the top, before I do the line by line, they have conceded that there's no impact to the oppressive gaze. Conceding the uniqueness question that black futures are constantly forgotten means that the oppressive gaze is already upon us. This answers all of their arguments. That means it is try or die for the affirmative. The second key framing issue is that they conceded that there is a double turn with the Phillips evidence that they read in the 1NC. It says that we should not allow impartial spectators, which is a double turn with their arguments that they read on framework because they allow impartial spectators, i.e. fairness, ballots, not ballots, but fairness and impartial spectators like the USFG to determine the value of the 1AC. It is a double turn. It is a performative double turn with their arguments that we should not allow impartial spectators in. Our argument is that they have outed themselves as that impartial spectator, and then instead you should do the permutation, vote affirmative to decline Harvard's negation as a form of radical allyship, because reading framework and conceding all of our arguments to why fairness is a form of civil defense means that you should not trust that the pixels any of the affirmative. Their first thing that they extended was that we are a form of feel-good politics. They conceded all of our reasons for why the counter-interpretation is good on framework, which we have flagged as a reason. Debates are good, and debates under our model are good. Extended counter-interpretation of radical states is good because it refigures what the ballot means. Ballots are necessary to test as competition because the nature of competition under our model forces people to test their arguments. It refines our arguments around a critical stasis that forces people to engage in KVK debates. Those are good because it leads to the liberation of people of color. Drop their subjectivity argument that says it results in people like Telson TL creating startup organizations like Leaders for a Beautiful Struggle, where they now advocate for abolitionist policies. In Baltimore, they conceded the example of Fullerton MM after engaging in migrant abolitionist literature. They went on to start immigration law firms and engage in mutual aid, which means that only our model has a risk of try or die. Engaging our model makes people more likely to engage in movements. They say capitalism outweighs one. This is a false equivalency. Just because we want the balance does not mean that we are going to cause the end of the world, but they have mishandled the blackness as subversive voter. This is the example of whenever blackness is given a space to try and affirm its own future. It is seen as subversive, i.e. you want the ballot. It's a capitalist logic. Therefore, you lead to the end of the world. Is the exact same type of logic that justifies the exclusion of black people from this space. I.e. the Preston-Noe evidence says that blackness is seen as subversive in nuclear planning because their existence in the shelter requires the exclusion of white people from that space. That is a form of subversiveness that the pig is demanding you to engage in the same logic because it requires the exclusion of the only two people in this space who have acknowledged black futures. Well, Harvard has not engaged in any of the black futures that we described in the 1AC. The surveillance argument, first, the top of the speech that I said above says that this is non-unique because black futures are constantly being surveilled. Black futures are constantly being negated in the status quo, which means it's only try or die after the affirmative. And we already impacts on the value of the ballot being good. They say that we sat motivation. No, the Smith evidence that we cross-applied since the 2AC and the 1ER says that we increase motivation in the constitutional debate for the examples I gave above. The individualism Muslim argument is entirely new, which means I get new answers, but I will still classify the answers already said above. Critique debaters outside of rounds but not motivated by competition historically come together to make sure that their arguments and their scholarship becomes more ethical and refined over time, i.e. the way that me and Curtis talk to USC, talk to Fullerton, talk to other K debaters outside this space, not just to make sure that we continue winning, but that K debate continues winning against impartial spectators like Harvard, who don't give a fuck about black futures in the first place. They say that we should be skeptical of any affirmative arguments. You remember, cross applications of every single argument on framework apply over here. They say that something about transigness means that they should not get a ballot. They say that they do not steal labor. Remember, this is not our argument. It's about them seeing blackness as this source of the arbitrary theory argument. Remember, they have mishandled our argument. They say that the ballot does not signal voting for Harvard. This is, remember, a distinction without a difference. Voting negative still requires you to vote to stay on time that you voted for Harvard. While we have said that the ballot as motivation is good. They say that the alternative is not politics. This is our example of how the alternative cannot, of how the pick can never solve the affirmative, because our affirmative says that bearing witness is key to political action. The presumption arguments, I already answered it above about the innate discretion of black history being always erased. They say the double turn and that kicking the alternative. This is the example of the 2AC argument. We say that you make black futures fungible if it means that you can't get about the framework arguments about all causes, about family, friends, or reading NFU. Not our model. That is their model, which means that the stuff about all causes applies to them because they said NFU. We are not fucking NFU. We are black futures.